Hi, everybody. Sadly, this week I will not be calling out for Giannis to be suspended. I know you're all disappointed, especially Milwaukee Bucks social media, who couldn't debate me on the opinion, but rather pointed at the fact that, oh, by the way, I also do a wrestling podcast that I have all sorts of wrestling memorabilia in the background, and that was their focus rather than debate my actual take that Giannis is a child, Giannis should be suspended. Damian Lillard still can't quicken the pace on a basketball team, and Doc Rivers blows as a coach. And this is a tweet that was circulating around that the greatest championship victory in the history of the NBA is the 2008 Celtics because they won a championship with Doc Rivers as their coach. Hi, Scaz.
Jay Stu, good to see you're feeling better. This is the Jay Stu I anticipate every week.
The bitter, angry, cold-hearted. If you've wronged me, you are on my revenge list. J Stu. Yeah, that's the one that probably draws the most money of any version of J Stu in the company. So exhale, J Stu. Exhale. Yes, I speak in the third person now sometimes. The Stu says. Disco Stu does not advertise for you all for all the Simpsons people out there in the world. Let's start with last night. If you're last night being Saturday night, Jayson Tatum hits a buzzer beater. My big takeaway is how Scal no sold it. They do the cams like we do Grand New Max cam. They do, I almost said Tom Carter for some reason, Drew Carter and Scal cam. Drew Carter's excited. Scal's like, yeah, that happened. Okay. Like, can we get some emotion, Scal? No, because I'm not a fan of Scal as a broadcaster, but never have been. The NBA says that it was a travel in the 2-minute report, which the 2-minute report does nothing for me anymore unless, yeah, it's just them being like, oh, see, we're on top of things. And oh, by the way, Jaylen Brown should have been shooting free throws because Mitchell should have been called for a foul against Jaylen Brown with 7 seconds to go. So either Jaylen Brown is at the line making his free throws, we assume, or Jayson Tatum gets to have the spectacular Chuck Person range 3-pointer. Which would you rather have had, Scaz?
Oh man, the way JB's been shooting free throws, that's a tough one. But I think anytime you can get a guy at the line, you got to take it. I mean, I trust them both of that situation. But you saw the first Tatum attempt, which I'm sure we'll get into. So yeah, give me JB at the free throw line there.
Oh, interesting. I would have thought I would have wanted the highlight of Jayson Tatum hitting another game-winning shot. And I know you've got some thoughts on the Jayson Tatum narrative about being clutch or not being clutch. I don't know your notes, so we'll see. Is he clutch? Is he not clutch?
Well, well, the clutch thing is, yeah, it's a loaded word at this point. Is Jason Tatum clutch? I would say yes. Jason Tatum is clutch. There are numbers to back up that he is clutch, but where the clutch conversation, especially in the NBA, gets out of hand is with percentages and stuff like that. So since the 2019-2020 season, it's been going around on Twitter. Tatum has the most buckets to tie or win a game in the final 5 seconds.
Oh,
Behind him, yes, he has 11. In second place, DeMar DeRozan with 9. SGA has 8. So is that a metric people want to use? No, not really, because it doesn't fit their narrative. They would like to focus on the field goal percentage, and which I'll agree with. Last year, Tatum was abysmal in the clutch, shooting percentage wise at times. But in the NBA, these guys are not going to be David Ortiz. No one, like, even that, like, baseball is probably even the wrong barometer to use because Big Papi would bat 400, 450. Like, for someone to be clutch in the NBA, it's like 30%. It is like above average in clutch rating, and it might even be lower than that now. So the bar is just kind of skewed when it comes to these guys in the clutch. Tatum 50% on Saturday night. Absolutely bricked the first one, hit the second one. You'll take that any day of the week. And I actually think I saw this floating around on Twitter a little bit that the play in overtime might have actually been drawn up for Jaylen, but it got sniffed out so quickly. The way Jaylen kind of reads it, I think he thought Toronto was going to sniff it out, and he kind of probably thought Tatum's just going to chuck this thing up anyways. So I didn't love what Jalen did on the play if it was for him, but I thought that was interesting that some people thought, oh, they might go to JB here instead of Tatum. So in my mind, Jayson Tatum is a clutch player. We don't have to do the whole clutch 2, TS2, clutch time, advanced clutch, all that stuff. We'll save that for the true nerds. But by most every single metric, if you want to really do the research, Jayson Tatum is a clutch player. He may not feel clutch because he's taking every single one of these clutch time shots. And guess what? He's not going to make most of them. Nobody makes most of them. Kobe Bryant beat the Celtics in the playoffs going, 8 of 24, being absolutely terrible. No one remembers it because they won the game. So is Tatum clutch or not? In my opinion, yes. It doesn't matter to me as long as they win. It is a long way to go to say that, Jay Stu.
So they used to say that Pierce was clutch. And I only remember a handful of like Pierce game-winning shots. There's the famous eye roll one against the Pacers.
Yes.
Specifically, I think it was Ron Artest before he was I almost said World Be Free, but it was something else. Meta World Peace. That's what it was. So Pierce has the reputation of being a closer. I'll tell you, just off the top of your head, Scaz, and because I thought this out and I typed this out before we hit record. Tatum game winners or game tires. Philly, and this was the game where I think it was Embiid hauled it up from 3/4 court, but it was just after the buzzer.
Yep.
There was that one. There was the layup against Kyrie and the Nets in game 1 of the postseason. Yep. There was like a random Wednesday night where he hit a go-ahead bucket against the Clippers. There was Christmas against the Bucks, COVID 2020.
That's a good one.
There was a fadeaway 3 against the Knicks, and there was another fadeaway that was on the elbow against Blake when he was on the Pistons. That might have been during COVID too. So those are 1, 2, 3, 6 that I came up with. There's probably a highlight reel of them. Somebody who's more video. Like I'd love to just go to YouTube and just like share screen and just let them run and us take our pants off and go, Tatum game winners. But those are the ones that come to mind for me. So that's more than enough. And Jaylen Brown also has the clutch gene. Look at what he did against the Pacers last year. I have a photo of that because I was courtside for it. And so like Jalen's on there too. They have two players who can hit a clutch shot, and that's something that we didn't think was possible when they were playing iso ball with like Gordon Hayward and
Marcus
IT
Smart.
and Marcus Smart. Yeah. So they're still growing. They're still learning. I will say this too, Scaz, is that I do like the fact that even though the Celtics are supposed to win 74 games, although Felger likes 69 better. Nice.
Nice.
Thank you. And they're supposed to blow doors on everybody. I like that there are competitive games because it makes the NBA regular season good. Should the Celtics win 60-plus games? Yes. Would I like to see it be competitive like this so that we can see flaws and we can do a daily talk show and a weekly podcast and all that? Yes. So far, I would say that despite them losing to the Hawks and almost losing some of these games, I'm entertained. I think this has been a good NBA season so far. But did you have something else more on the Tatum clutch stuff?
On the Tatum clutch stuff, well, there was one a couple years ago with Jared Allen too, where he dunked on Allen and then they lost in overtime. But that's kind of where the clutch thing gets a little crazy for me too, is because the biggest clutch moment to me for Jayson Tatum is Game 6 in Milwaukee. And that's not one shot. It's an entire game where he goes into your building and beats you. Another example is 2018 when they lost in Game 7 to LeBron. But Jayson Tatum was the best Celtic on the floor that night, dunked on LeBron. I know they lost, but like stuff like that to me is like, are you clutch? Do you show up in those moments? And then on, Jalen has, a handful of them too. I think the fact that those guys have the confidence to do it is a major thing too. They're never going to shy away from the moment.
Yeah, and that's good. And Jalen seems to like embrace the moment a little bit more than Tatum is given credit for. And I think like, I heard somebody say this and I can't think of who it was. Maybe it was Brian Barrett on the Joe Murray Experience, where he said that that Tatum and Brown are Kawhi Leonard and Paul George only healthy. Did he say something like that with you?
So yeah, that sounds like something Brian would say. Brian is a big believer in this team and a big believer, and he's a big numbers guy as well. And I would agree with the sentiment. I think they're much healthier and they're much better shooters. But no, the defensive marks, I would say they're turning into those level players defensively.
Yeah, they've always like I remember when Jaylen Brown came out of college and people were like, "Oh, he's going to be Kawhi Leonard. He might be better than Kawhi Leonard because Kawhi kind of doesn't want to play. He just kind of wants to play when he wants to play." I mean, he had issues with Popovich, but he wins a title with Toronto, so it's like he can show that he can carry it. And then Paul George, like I didn't want Tatum to be Paul George, and I wanted Paul George at one time, but since I wanted Paul George, it's like no, I kind of don't want Paul George. Um, so this is good. This is all good. I wanted to kind of work from the Hawks loss out because it kind of plays into like how I've enjoyed these close games. And yes, they should not have lost to the Hawks. But if you look at their 3 possessions before the actual loss, Tatum, with about 24 seconds on the clock, has a wide open 3 that circles the drain and out. He hits that 3, they win that game because Atlanta probably goes for a 3. And hey, whoever it was, and I forget his name, had the triple double. Maybe he hits another shot and it goes to overtime. But so there's option 1 for they had a chance to win the game. And this works as your percentages go, Scaz. Like, I mean, that's a 24-second, but it's a late shot and he misses it, even though it circles the drain and bounces out. Like open shot, win, is in the cylinder and goes out, right? Tatum fumbling the inbounder with the inbound pass with about 10 seconds left. Celtics get the ball back under what I would call shady circumstances, but who am I to say what the referee on the court saw and what the replay official saw and, you know, how the games are choreographed, maybe predetermined, maybe they had the points. I don't know. But then exactly quotation fingers. And then on the inbound play, Jaylen Brown circles and gets a clean look that he just kind of like double pumped. But I mean, make or miss league, right? Like, am I overstating the make or miss thing? But like, they should have been in that spot, but they were. I kind of liked it, but I hated that they lost.
Yeah, I'm with you. Being battle tested is always good. Always, obviously this team is beyond battle tested at this point. But even last year's team was losing games they shouldn't have lost early in the season. I think they lost to the Hawks early in the
Twice.
season last year. They lost to Orlando last year early in the season. They shouldn't have lost to them. But the thing that stood out for me in that fourth quarter was 20-2 points in the paint for Atlanta. 20-2 points in the paint. They had 5 offensive rebounds, 9-0 in second chance points in the fourth quarter. So that was my big concern going away from that one was you got absolutely killed inside and that's not sustainable. I know the Celtics want to force everybody outside, keep shooting threes to keep up with them offensively, but if a team can beat you that bad inside, you're going to be in trouble.
It's something that they need. And it's more because when you look at the Celtics, they're kind of like a big, tiny team, right? So their backcourt is 6'3" and 6'3". They have 2 small forwards playing their wings that are Tatum's 6'9", I think he's listed at. Jalen's 6'8", maybe when he's got the stilts that they use in he's got a little pumped up sneakers, so maybe he's 6'8". And then you got Horford, who's like literally 6'7". No, not 6'7", 6'11", because he can't jump, right? So that's your center. So maybe they're a small big team. I don't know. I don't know exactly like how I'm saying that, but maybe there's something there, and I just don't have the detail to complete the thought.
Well, I think something that's missing too is Tillman's kind of hurt them this year. That he was a guy that I think they planned on relying on more, and I think some Celtics fans would say they pulled the trigger a little too quick on his minutes. But he was a guy who was supposed to get some rebounds and hit some threes, and he wasn't doing that in his minutes. So that's kind of a spot that they thought they had shored up, and now it's looking like more of a question mark.
And maybe this ties into you and your point about Joe Mazzulla messing around with the rotations.
Yeah, so I know you noticed this as well, and I think Dick Lightpad at the Celtics statistician there, best in the business. If you're not following him as a Celtics fan, you got to. But he tweeted that that was the first time in their career that Tatum and Brown had ever played the entire first quarter together. And I think Missoula was asked about it briefly after the game. I don't know if he really got into it, but he basically said, I was messing with the lineups, which I'm okay with. I know it doesn't look good in a loss, but this isn't exactly Jim Montgomery fighting for his life, switching up the lines in a blender. This is, Joe Mazzulla has some cachet now. This is something that Joe Mazzulla can now do. He can mess around a little bit. When you win a title and you are, the head coach of the Celtics with this kind of roster, I didn't love it. I don't think it's something we'll be seeing very often with the splits when they were both off at the same time. So you tried something, Joe. It didn't work. We love Joe Mazzulla. I think he's a good coach, but I wouldn't expect to see Tatum and Brown on the same minutes plan going forward.
No, and so it's the whole thing. If they played the fourth quarter and they played all 12 minutes, like I think we'd be okay with it. But I don't want them playing early unless they like have to. But it's more about like I would rather have a stronger closing five than a stronger opening. I think like game start in the NBA is kind of overrated as you're kind of seeing because Peyton Pritchard's been in there late in certain situations, especially with injuries and so on and so on and so on. But like the starting lineup is a touch overrated. Playing more in the first, I don't love, but I kind of understand it if you're shorthanded, all that. So, but it wouldn't surprise me either because this is something that now happens across all sports. Is during the regular season, a team or a player will intentionally make a mistake so that it's on film so that their opponents will anticipate them making that same mistake. But then that mistake never happens again because it was planted on film just because, just to F with you, just to make you sit on something that is never actually coming again. It's more prevalent in baseball, I think. Greg Maddux will set somebody up and he'll let Jeff Bagwell hit a home run. And then Jeff Bagwell will never see that pitch again, but he's waiting for it. So you might never see Tatum and Brown play the entire first quarter ever again, but now it's on film and it takes up brain matter, it takes up brain space.
Yeah, and I should clarify because I'm sure somebody will. That was the first time in the regular season they've ever played the entire first quarter together. They've done it in the playoffs like 3 or 4 times.
That's good. You need that clarification.
Of course, of
And
course.
and with the Hawks game, it was the first of the in-season tournament games. I know why they're doing it. I'm all for more stakes. Like I'm for more things being important. The math, like I don't want to see Andre Drummond fouled in the third quarter again. I can live without that.
Yes.
I like the concept of something. I just wish it was for a guaranteed playoff spot. That's the thing that I wish it was for. The uniforms are not for me. The courts are not for me. But I understand you're trying to put stakes on something. You're trying to give players more money. You're trying to sell more merchandise and you're trying to make it stand out. All these things are happening. They're just not for me. They're not for me, Scaz. They're just not for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, and this is something that Joe's been all over on the night show. He is not a fan, not a fan of the in-season tournament, and I think it's because it feels forced a little bit. We don't. You're making up these stakes as you go. It feels there's no clear. You get what 500,000 for each guy, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but not to these guys. That's not motivating Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Not in the middle of December to go to Vegas and win, and not at this point in their careers. So is it a good thing for maybe the Pistons or a team like the Pacers last year where you can, build some camaraderie, some chemistry, play for some quote unquote higher stakes in the middle of the season? Sure. But, a veteran team, like I was shocked at how hard LeBron, I guess because he needed one more notch in his belt last year, but a veteran team trying hard for this thing, I almost would look at you like judge you for it. Like you're wasting your time and energy trying to do this in the middle of the season as opposed to getting healthy and getting ready for the playoffs. So I like the idea. I'm okay with it, but I think it needs a lot of work. And the jerseys are awful. I'm with you.
Yeah. Like I think the only alternate jersey for the Celtics that I liked was I think it was 08, 09, somewhere in that where they had like a little bit of a black trim on it. I think I like those. The ones that they had that were designed in part by or inspired by the family of Bill Russell, those were acceptable to me. These like bright neon, like 16 different 50 shades of green in them, like no, it just doesn't sing to me. And like I had a hard time watching the game the other night because the court is just like it's something, man. Like my eyes just hurt like thinking about trying to rewatch that game. Like it's blinding. I think yeah.
Yeah, you go around the league too, and they're all like that. Like they're purple and red, and like these courts are crazy. And the Celtics jerseys look like Oregon Ducks jerseys. Peyton Pritchard probably felt like he was back in Oregon. It's just you have such a good clean thing with the white and the Kelly green. Like you don't need to do anything too crazy. You can gamify it a little bit and make it look nice. We don't need the neon and the all black and neon green. I'm out on that.
Yeah, I'm out on it too. You had some thoughts on the Nets game?
Yeah, on the Nets game. So that was I don't want to say the first time, but that was one of the times where it felt like, okay, this is the team we saw last year. They're back. They're going to let you hang around for a little bit, and then they're just going to beat it out of you. They're going to make you quit. Last year, I thought that was one of the greatest things the Celtics did all season was they forced their opponents to quit. They just played harder, played longer, shot better, and they did it for, 3.5 quarters, whatever it took last season. And eventually teams would lie down. I thought that Brooklyn team looked like one of the first teams we've seen this year lie down. And that was one of Pritchard's best games of the year. I know he only had 23 points, and we've gotten to the point with Peyton Pritchard where we're saying only 23 points, but he had 8 assists and he was really effective on a second night of a back-to-back when you need your guys like that to step up. And Cedric Maxwell said it. I think he said it on the broadcast. He might have said it on Toucher and Hardy as well. But he said Pritchard came up to him, was like, that one's on me. I'm supposed to be the energy guy, and I wasn't the energy guy. I needed to step up and kind of bring it tonight for my guys, and I thought he did exactly that.
Yeah, and it goes to the point we talked about, and Missoula mentioned Peyton Pritchard's a 3-level scorer, and I still don't think of him that way. I still think of him as like the half court specialist guy, and he's doing so much more than that. And it's to the point where Peyton Pritchard is a starter on maybe 15 of the 30 teams in the league. He's probably a starter somewhere, and he's the sixth man. He's on this great contract, but he probably could get starting minutes somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. I think he's earned at least that consideration for sure. I still think the defense is questionable, but he's even become a much better defender than I think a lot of people ever expected.
If Mike D'Antoni is still in the league somewhere, he's looking at Peyton Pritchard and be like, I can get 30 out of him. Damn it.
Yeah, and on that, just the turnaround there from Atlanta to Brooklyn, I think that speaks a lot to who the Celtics have become. They had 40 turnovers and offensive rebounds allowed in that first game. They had 11 combined on the next night. Their biggest differential. They had their worst rebounding and turnover game, and then had their best rebounding and turnover game the very next night. And that's championship medal. That's just when you can go to another level and prove that's who you are after a bad loss. That's what you do, and that's exactly what the Celtics did.
Yeah. 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 That's what they're doing, Scaz. That's what they're doing. I was kind of hoping, we want to talk about Jaylen Brown versus Nike. And so, I still think that Giannis should be suspended. He should be fined. He should be, borderline kicked out of the league. Or maybe the modification is he should be traded to a sucky organization, like a really bad organization. Like that's your punishment for being a child. But he drops 59 the other night. And whoever's running the Nike basketball handle goes nothing childish about them. 59 for the Greek Freak. And Jaylen Brown summed it up perfectly by quote tweeting Nike basketball saying, y'all got weird energy. And it's like, it's the perfect way for Jaylen Brown to handle the situation. And like, Nike basketball is obsessed with trolling Jaylen Brown. Like,
It's
and
weird.
Jaylen Brown's on the record as being like, yeah, if I have to take money from Nike, like, I don't want to play on Team USA, which is good for Jaylen, right? And he's somebody of principle. I can add this little detail because as a memorabilia collector, like, I have a signed photo of Jaylen Brown. Find something signed from Jaylen Brown over the past year, 2 years. It's hard. And I know as a fact that these memorabilia companies are offering Jaylen Brown big time money just so he can scribble a JB on a basketball or an 8x10 photo or a championship trophy. And he says no. So JB is just a different dude. He just wants to play basketball at a high level, do some good stuff in the community that nobody ever finds out about, and call it a night, call it a day. And should be credited for that. And here's Nike trying to, mess with him. And Jaylen Brown's like, nah, get out of here. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I think you're harping on is absolutely correct. You harping on the wording of Jaylen Brown's tweet that y'all got some weird energy because it's weird. The whole thing is just kind of bizarre. Nike is this global brand that is, maybe the most like influential, like tied in with the NBA of any, maybe Adidas and soccer is relative, but Nike and the NBA are synonymous. And you have Nike publicly basically feuding with one of the NBA Finals MVP who is off the Olympic team. It's very weird. It's bizarre. I give credit to JB for, sticking to his guns, being who Jaylen is. We've known this since the Celtics drafted him. He, beats to his own drum. And I think that's why he resonates with a lot of people. That's why he is so beloved in Boston, because he does so many great things in Boston and he just is who he is. But from the Nike perspective, it's what is their angle? What are you doing? What is your issue with Jaylen Brown? Are you that slighted? Like Nike, you're not like the girlfriend that was slighted. You're a multi-billion-dollar organization that can do whatever they want. You shouldn't be so I don't know,
Sensitive.
vindictive towards. Yeah, sensitive is the perfect word for it. Sensitive, vindictive towards a star player in one of the most prominent sports that you're featured. So the whole thing is really childish from Nike, in my opinion, and just really bizarre.
What it is, Scaz, is when somebody can't control you, they get upset about it. They get
That's a
upset
good way to
about
put
it.
it. That's a
And
really good way to put it.
that's what it is. Nike could not control Jaylen Brown, and they're upset about it. They're bitter about it. And Jaylen's like essentially, doing a gesture that got Anthony Edwards fined by the NBA.
I gotcha.
Yeah. I wanted to have, when we were doing this, I wanted to have an official, the Cavaliers are still unbeaten, but as we record this, they're making the turn for home, as Sean Grandy would say. It is currently 99-93. The Cavs have a lead over the Charlotte Hornets. No Donovan Mitchell for the Cavs tonight. The Cavs are interesting to me because they have a really good roster. They had one. There's no Mitchell in the lineup tonight, but they have Darius Garland, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. Those are what I would call the Cavs' big four. And what happened is, you're going to look at it and be like, oh, the Celtics sweep them, kick them right out of the playoffs. Well, there were some circumstances that should have been a closer series than it was. But why are the Cavaliers all of a sudden, as we record this, undefeated? Now, if you're listening on Monday, they probably lost and it makes us look bad. But here's why they are the best team in the East right now. They hired a coach in Kenny Atkinson, who's a really good coach. And the players are buying into his coaching. And this is historically what Kenny Atkinson has done. I kind of mentioned this a week or so ago. Kenny Atkinson has only had one issue as far as being a coach, and that's when Kyrie Irving was on his team. So who's the a-hole in that spot? The answer is Kyrie Irving. I will answer the question because the Brooklyn Nets were on an upward trajectory at the time. And then they cleaned house for Kyrie and Durant and James Harden ultimately. And Atkinson wanted to play a certain way. Kyrie did not. So Kyrie got Kenny Atkinson fired. Kenny Atkinson went to the Warriors. He was an assistant on Steve Kerr's staff the year that the Warriors beat the Celtics in the finals and won the championship. And now he's on the Cavaliers staff and he's got a good season. He's got the best record in the East. And that's because he's a really good coach who connects with players. And so that is a main reason why the Cavs are doing so well. Does this carry on to the playoffs? I don't know. I'd like to think that it does because I would like a good competitive Eastern Conference Finals. I kind of would like to see the Cavs win a championship without LeBron James. And I'd kind of like to see Kenny Atkinson win a championship as a head coach for a basketball team just to stick it up the backside of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So that is my piece on the Cavaliers. Scaz.
Yeah, I think the Cavs are probably the best story in basketball right now. I mean, they're undefeated as of taping, we should say. But they play a very fast pace, a very spread the floor kind of style. It's similar to the Celtics, but they do slow it down at times because they have two bigs that are legit bigs. I hope Mitchell is good to go for Tuesday. I don't know if there's any news around that yet, but one thing that's really stood out to me is their open three rate. And we shouted out Brian Barrett earlier, but we had him on the other night as well. And he mentioned something that was staggering. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, you mentioned their big four, but Karis LeVert's a guy who's killed the Celtics for a while too. Karis LeVert is a career 34.4% three-point shooter. Okay, average. This year, Karis LeVert is shooting 48.9% from three. He is basically shooting 50% from three. That is unheard of. And a lot of that has to do with Kenny Atkinson and the offense he's installed and, how well the team is taking to his coaching, something you've been harping on for the last 2 weeks. But it's not just Karis LeVert either. Darius Garland is shooting 45.8% from three this year. He's a career 38% three-point shooter. So these are two guys shooting over 45% from three. They're taking a lot of threes. So while the Cavs are the best story in basketball and while they should be taken very seriously by the Celtics, especially on Tuesday night, I hesitate a little bit to say that it's super sustainable long term. Obviously, no one thinks they're going to go undefeated. I think they're a very good team. Maybe they are the second best team in the East. I still want to see what the Pacers do as the season goes on. I still want to see if the Knicks can kind of put it together, but I can't expect Garland and LeVert and these guys to shoot at a 48 and 45% clip for the rest of the season. So I'll be interested to see what happens with Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs when they lose 2 out of 3. Maybe that doesn't happen, but I want to see what happens when they do start to hit a little bit of a skid and teams adjust to what he has done with the Cavaliers.
Scaz, you sound like a certain radio show from 2 to 6 who felt that way about the Celtics under Mazzulla Ball 2 years ago.
It's not sustainable. They can't do it. You can't chuck up this many threes.
You're right, Maz. You're right. I mean, you're right, Mike. You're right.
Yeah.
Something else about the 3-pointers is I noticed just looking at the grid of team shooting and the team dashboard that the Celtics are still number 1 in the NBA in open 3-point shots. But as far as wide open 3-point shots go, they're 5th. And they've usually been hanging around 1, 2, 3. It's just like it's a little detail, but it's something to kind of watch for. That maybe they're not getting the widest open of wide shots, and maybe that's a reason why they're not blowing teams out like they had been. But again, I'm here for a more competitive NBA. So if night in, night out, this is what I'm getting, I'm kind of okay with that because we need some drama for the regular season.
Yeah, I almost think that goes back to the Warriors game too. You saw what Steve Kerr did. He attacked the 3-point line defensively. He was sending everybody out, doubling Tatum, and they were kind of being blitzed at the 3-point line. And maybe I think we are, without a doubt, starting to see more of that against the Celtics teams. This Celtics team, they're getting blitzed at the 3-point line. Teams do not want to die by the 3, even though that's the Celtics, preferred way of taking teams out. It's just maybe we are seeing the adjustment, and now it's on Mazzulla and his staff to kind of readjust to the adjustment. This is what great coaches do. You have a game plan. It works for a while. Eventually it gets figured out. What's your next step? What's your next move? And, we're going to see it on Tuesday night.
Here's something also is that the Celtics lead the NBA in field goal attempts, open field goal attempts. So that is something that is a good sign. And they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in wide open field goal attempts. So that's something. That means Missoula is still drawing up good plays. Do you want to do Tatum MVP watch? Because Basketball Reference has Jayson Tatum as number 2 behind Jokic. Jokic has a probability of winning the MVP of 82%. Jayson Tatum is at 4.8%.
Yes, I love Jayson Tatum. I think he's a top 5 player in the world without question. But Nikola Jokic has, in my opinion, unless injury happens, he is the MVP. He should be the MVP until he stops playing like this. Watch him, enjoy him. He is a once in a lifetime type player. He is a freak. He had like 35, 18, and 15 the other night. Tatum, he's going to have awesome numbers. He's going to have an incredible year. Love you, mean it, as someone from 2 to 6 would say, but it's Nikola Jokic's MVP. It is. I know it's November 17th. Anything can happen, but Nikola Jokic, he is everything. He's anything, everything, whatever you want to say. It's his MVP.
Zach Lowe used to have a saying that as long as Greg Popovich is in the league, as long as LeBron James is in the league, I'm voting for them for their respective awards every single time until he doesn't. And that's it feels like Jokic is on that path right now. Although, something else to watch for is that the Celtics need to stop giving up triple doubles. I mean, RJ Barrett gets one the other night. I don't even remember who got it for the Hawks the other night. Like
might have been Jalen Johnson. I think I could be. I know Dyson Daniels was incredible in that game too. They got some pieces down in Atlanta.
They need to stop giving up the triple doubles. Scaz, any final thoughts?
No, Jay Stu. It's not too often we get a early or mid-November, I should say, big basketball game, but I'm looking forward to it on Tuesday night. Celtics Cavs. I just did a little piece for the website, shameless plug, on the best Celtics Cavs matchups over it. I didn't go too far back, but I had to include Pierce LeBron 2008 in there. But there's been some good ones over the years. Almost all of them come down to 2-3 points at the end of the game. So I'm hoping for that on Tuesday night.
There's a double overtime one where it's Pierce and LeBron at the Garden. And I remember because I was there. And I'm so blessed to see as much basketball as I have. But there's a double overtime one that doesn't get talked about enough because everybody's focused on that game 7 where PJ Brown hits the shot to win it. But there's a double overtime one where Pierce has like 48, LeBron has 50 or something like that. That I hope that one's on your list.
I started in the playoffs in 2008, so I might have to go back a little further for that one. But
all right,
we can adjust.
I just gave you an assignment to.
Yes, I did have the Avery Bradley game in there. That was one of the first ones I had. Avery Bradley at the buzzer back when those scrappy Celtics teams.
That was the Bridgie Celtics, and that was the only game they won in that playoff series, right?
I believe so. No, I think you're right because LeBron had like 11 points and played 45 minutes in that game. Maybe his worst game ever against the Celtics. A really weird LeBron performance that night.
Yeah, I was in the building the night that LeBron went off for the Heat in Game 6, but sidetrack. That was the end of the Celtics.
That was the night LeBron became LeBron.
That was the night LeBron became a man.
Literally.
It took over like 48 minutes in the Garden, took care of it. All right. We will be back next week. Next week we'll have a Cavs recap. We'll have some other fun stuff. Hopefully I will have more energy. Hopefully I will be a stronger participant in next week's podcast. Scaz had to carry me like it's I don't know. I don't have a good I don't have a good
never carry.
Thank you for carrying me today, Scaz. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you all next week.